Hi, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Mary Jane. We're so excited that you're here. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you're back again,
We desire that you feel uplifted and challenged, but mostly that you are invited into a conversation that will enable you to develop deeper connections with those you do life with. So grab your favorite beverage and join us at Connection with Purpose. Welcome to episode 10. If you're wondering why we're still in the same clothes, if you watched 9, it's because we're switching things up. All right. So if you were coming to episode 10 and you're like, Mother's Day, wait a second, that was episode 9. What did I miss? It is because we're breaking things apart. We want to keep it a little bit shorter, a little bit easier for you to engage and to join in. And so one of the things that we did was with the passage is we split the questions up. And some of the other things that we talk about on all the time during our podcast. And so we kind of switch some things around. And so give us some feedback. Do you like the shorter segments? And do you like having something that you can go to every week? Or do you like the longer format and every 2 weeks? So give us some feedback. Let us know what you prefer. But if you're wondering why we're jumping in and all of a sudden talking about something different than what we usually start with, that's the reason why. So feel free. Also, we've already recorded and our coffees are halfway gone. So that's the reason why is we're doing
this is our
2
second
parts.
conversation.
Yeah, we're doing 2 parts and now we're jumping in to the second part. But one of the things that I think will be helpful is go ahead and reread the scripture so that if somebody is just joining and they're curious what the scripture is about, they can still hear that. So where are we at with our Mother's Day topic?
We are in Exodus 2:3. And the scripture is, "But when she could no longer hide him, she took an ark of bulrushes for him, daubed it with salt and pitch, and put the child in it and laid it in the reeds by the river's bank." And this is about Moses.
And specifically his mother, Jochebed. And the question that we're going to jump into is, how did it affect your heart? And I think for me, what lengths would you go to protect your child? And that's really where this just spoke to my heart. And a part of it just because of some personal things that were happening in our lives. But I do think that there is a delicate balance in our society with protection. And where does protection go into maybe not allowing your child to grow up, not allowing your child to grow from mistakes or failures? We talked about that in a previous episode about how failure is inevitable. And when you can learn that it doesn't make you a failure, but rather you can gain valuable information from when you do fail. And that I think some of the most successful people have learned from what they have failed at is that you can move forward. And so that really, I think, is what spoke to my heart. And this woman was willing to lay it all out. And she was willing to go above and beyond to try to protect her child. And it is fascinating. We talked a little bit about it in the last episode, just about also God's provision and how he orchestrated these certain events that she couldn't have. Yes, she could have maybe gone to certain areas to see what would happen, but she couldn't know that certain events would happen when they did. And so
How it would be used later.
That was probably the biggest thing as far as what really got to me in this particular passage and that tie into Mother's Day, that as a parent, it is my job to protect my children, and sometimes at the cost of what society would think.
Or friendships.
Or fill in the blank. And one of the other songs that I think really spoke to me that goes along with this is Unsung Hero. Now, it's a movie, and so if you haven't seen the movie, I do recommend it. It deals with king and country and specifically what their mother did for them. But the chorus says, "You're strong like your father, even when you were scared. When I was in trouble, you never left me there. And you love like your mother, like there's nothing to lose. You're my unsung hero, so I'll sing this song for you. And I think that it's interesting because I think we do look at Jochebed as a hero,
Mm-hmm.
but most of the time people would point to Moses as the one who did these great things. And yet, if it hadn't been for Jochebed's courage and her strength and her willing to do whatever it cost, there wouldn't have been Moses. And so, and again, I'm not saying that God couldn't intervene in a miraculous way. So please don't misunderstand me there. But all of those things kind of had to fall into place, and she had to be willing to follow what she believed the Lord wanted her to do. And so those were some of the things that stood out.
I think the way this affects me is that it makes me incredibly sad for the women of that time. And I think in our last episode, I mentioned heart-wrenching.
Yeah.
Because I just think they were going through such an emotional time. And like you said in the last episode, was that maybe they hadn't grieved yet, or they weren't grieving, they were just surviving.
Yeah.
And I think it also makes me hopeful and encouraged that even in the worst of situations, we can give our children to God.
Yeah.
Because they're ultimately His.
Yeah.
And I think so many times we try to overprotect and we don't let them make mistakes and give them the skills that they need. And it's easier to do it ourselves. Sometimes as a mom, I've been there instead of having them alongside you and teaching them things and doing some of those kinds of things. I sent my children to my mother to learn how to sew.
Yeah. My mother-in-law is fantastic. She's definitely teaching my children that because I have no clue.
I can do it. I'm just not very patient at it. And then I'm easily frustrated. I just think that it's so encouraging that God has a plan for each of us. And even in this time when the male babies were being killed, Moses was saved to do great things. Maybe none of us are going to be, the next star figure,
leader,
or whatever.
Let my people go.
Right? Telling Pharaoh these things, but at the same time, God uses each of us in our own way every day.
Yeah.
And He has purpose and plan for us. And that is encouraging to me.
Yeah.
That He is not finished with what we have and He's using us. And even in ways we don't understand. I mean, Jochebed had no idea.
No.
One, as we talked about in the last episode, that no idea that Pharaoh's daughter might even been there to find him.
Right.
Maybe just some Egyptian woman would find him and think he was pleasing to look at and keep him, or maybe just to keep him hidden there with Miriam watching so that she could go get him on a regular basis. We don't know what was going through Jochebed's mind at that point.
No.
And so I find that to be so fascinating. But that's how it kind of affected me, is that there's encouragement that God has a plan for each of us.
Yeah, absolutely. What practical applications did you gain? Another way I think I want to phrase this is, what area did you find that the Holy Spirit was asking you to either change or grow?
Well, and my application was similar. As parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, guardians, if you're a mentor for young people, whoever you are, that God has a plan for the children around us. They are loved by God and we should love them. And some of us are Sunday school teachers, or we work with Wednesday night programs, or whatever night you have your kids' programs. Those kids need to know the love of God. And I think that's where we need to be able to communicate with them that God has plan and purpose for their life. I don't believe any of this was an accident or coincidence.
Right.
God's plan, we don't understand it. We don't always understand the things that He takes us through. He's right there with us. My difficult thing was, my God is my rock, and He takes us through tough things, but there's there could be a reason. And some of the tough things that I've been through, I've used to counsel young women, to counsel my own children, in order to counsel women with eating disorders and to do some of those kinds of things, because I really feel like those things that have been in my life then help me to help other people, and that he can use us through all these heart-wrenching circumstances. And I just feel like that is, with all the unrest in the world right now,
Oh, yes.
that I just think we all need to be reminded that no matter what is going on, our God is in control.
Yeah.
He's in, he could rain manna from heaven. I mean, come on, people.
Right.
I'm sure it was wonderful,
Oh, yes.
even though they got tired of it
Fantastic.
and fussed. And I would be the same way.
I would. I need some variety in my
variety.
life.
I'm like, okay, can you make
I
it
know
taste
this
like
is,
chocolate today?
I know this, yeah, I know this is really good for me and it sustains me, but
I think we are so, and especially in America, we're so used to overabundance
yes.
that when things start getting scarce, we don't know how to handle that
Mm.
because we have never had to rely on God in that way, where other population groups have.
Yeah. So today, have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just find that to be incredibly comforting.
That is. What about you? When you read this passage, what were some of the things that stood out for you? And again, one of the things that we encouraged in the last episode, and I encourage now, is speak it out loud or write it down. Because I think that there's something great about being able to go back later and see, like, this was really I was struggling with this. And then later seeing how God was able to move in that situation. And so just take a moment, even if you need to just pause right now and say, wow, this is how God was moving in my life. These are some of the things that he's currently speaking on with regards to how I can take this and apply it. And I think for me, the biggest thing was, what am I willing, kind of along the line where it talked to my heart, what am I personally willing to sacrifice for protecting my kids? And it's not this element of, I want to shelter them. It's not this element of, I want nothing bad to come into their lives. It's rather the fact that we live in a broken world, that you are broken and I am broken. And so what can we do to help that kind of situation? And so I probably have quite a few things that I do that are not popular. My kids will probably attest to them. One being that we are not a phone family. Our kids do not have phones. They do not have access to social media. And I am willing to allow them to not be a part of something like that until they are ready. And for us, I think that's probably closer to the 16 age range than younger. And so it depends. I think every child is different as well. Some kids are just a little bit more ready than others. And
we were 18.
Yeah.
For
And
social media.
Yeah. And so again, some of it might be later. So,
and I'm glad, because we didn't have to deal with all the social media bullying.
Well, I mean, there's tons of things. I could talk almost all day about how I think it's affecting girls' minds and how mental health is taking a hit because of all of it. But this podcast isn't going to go that long. So that's one of the things. But the other thing that I am not afraid to do is I am not afraid to allow my kids to say, my mom said I can't, blah, blah, blah. Fill in the blank. I tell them all the time, feel free to throw me under the bus. Not going to hurt me one bit. And there's a situation recently that we had to talk through it. And I was like, look, we all have choices. We can all choose to make different choices and teach different lessons. So this is what I'm going to say. And this is the protection that I'm going to put in place. And while it may not seem fair or friends may not like it, I'm okay with that. And they can come and say, well, how come they can't blah, blah, blah. And I was like, most kids aren't. So I'm just going to say that up front, is that if there is a kid willing to come to you and ask, like, why do you have this rule? like that kid is going to do some amazing things. Because to be able to have the thought process to be able to say, well, I wonder what it was, and not just, oh, well, an adult said it, so I'm just going to take it for what it is. But all of that to say, most kids don't. They're like, oh, okay, your parents said you can't, like they leave it alone. So that's the beauty of it, right? But I do. I tell my kids, like, this is the reason behind it. And this is why this is important. And does it mean it'll always stay this way? No. Sometimes situations change and you grow up a little bit or they grow up a little bit. And so things can change. But at this point in time, this is what we're going to do. And so I think it just, I don't know, again, it's fascinating to me how God's word does that, is that this situation would come up at this time in my life where it was almost a reassurance of like, yeah, it's okay to protect your kids. Like, go for it. And so I was just really appreciative of that. And that's how, for me, there was that practical application of like Jochebed was willing to really go the distance, if you will, if you want to look at it in that way. And so I'm okay. I'm okay with setting up what we would probably say are small things in comparison. So again, we want to hear what practical applications did you take away from this passage. And again, if you didn't get a chance, go back and listen to the other one where we talk about what that passage is about if you've never heard this story before. And what kind of questions would you ask Jochebed? What kind of things popped into your mind? I think that's probably one of my favorites, is because that's how my mind works, is what was it like during that time period, and what caused people to make certain decisions. So definitely take a look at that. We're going to jump into our top 5, which is people you admire. And I already said this at the very beginning of our other episode, is that typically top 5, we do categories because we're really, really bad
at this.
at narrowing it down. And this one, again, we've already said this. This one, again, there's a little bit of anxiety of like, I don't want to leave anybody out. Like,
We didn't even know
please,
that.
please don't feel offended. Like, there's a lot of people that I admire. And so some of these I get a little bit specific, but some of them are more random general categories. So we're going to start with number 5 and we work our way to number 1. So what was number 5 for you?
I put down some former coworkers, bosses, and leaders in rural health. I've been working in the rural health space for the last 25 years,
Mm-hmm.
and actually probably more than that. But again, I've had some amazing professionals that I have worked with that when I was a young professional took me under their wing. Some of them were, again, former bosses. I put some names down here: Pat and Norm and Barb and Doris. If Doris is listening, she's a fellow Christian. My friend Matt coming to bat for me when I needed it. And just many more people that just really helped me to flourish or had my back, really are people that I admire.
Yeah.
I admire loyalty and passion.
Well, it's funny because number 5 for me was people who are like history shakers. And for this one, and some of them, not all of these are that way, but I kind of had the Mother's Day idea. So it was more female related. I immediately thought of like Rosa Parks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was like, I ain't doing it. I've been on my feet all day. I ain't moving. People like Amelia Earhart, who are like, I can do that. I can totally do that. And I put down Marie Curie, and just again these people that were like, this is going to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And so you talk about that passion. And so that was for me. I put history, but again, science, technology, all of those things. Eleanor Roosevelt,
Mm-hmm.
who really like reshaped the role of the first lady and what she would do with that title. So again, I kind of went all over the place, but that was my number 5, was kind of history shakers. Number 2 for me was,
Are we doing number 2 or are we doing?
I'm sorry, not number 2, 4. as I jump
I'm like, wait a minute.
Hold up. Number 4 for me were nurses. I personally have had a really, really good experience with nurses. There have been, and I honestly will most I prefer, not always. Again, I'm not trying to like downplay doctors in any stretch of the imagination, but there's I would take a nurse practitioner over a doctor. There's just something about the way that they have to put up with everything is the best way I can say that. And yet they also have the care and compassion for people. And I'm not trying to say that there aren't doctors who don't. There are. But I just so strongly admire so many nurses, and obviously sitting next to one. So yeah, I definitely admire nurses and what they do.
So you're going to think this is terribly funny
Okay.
because my number 4 is Florence Nightingale and the profession of nursing.
Yes.
And we don't talk about this
We
ahead
do
of
not.
time, which is so funny. And it was like a toss up between the profession of nursing and women of the Bible. I was really torn at that point because we had those people early on that were figuring things out, and Florence Nightingale changed the profession that I work in such a great way. And then we also have women of the Bible that showed us courage.
Mm.
And I think of Esther and Ruth are two of my favorite Bible stories in terms of women with great courage. So it kind of goes with your historical women.
Yeah.
Like we're thinking along the same lines, which is
Absolutely.
so crazy and
Yeah.
fun at the same time.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely we have some people to admire in history that have done some really great things.
Really great things. What about number 3? I will go in order here. 3.
For me, it was youth workers that I've had in the past.
Okay.
And I think Susan, who may be watching, she's found us on Facebook, had an incredible impact on me as a young person. And a lot of my youth leaders, so many over the years that were able to connect from a young age. Sunday school teachers that I had back in 4th grade, Mrs. Lawrence and some of the other ones. You don't realize what an impact you have in other people's lives.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you put youth workers. It's similar, and that it was women of faith. And I specifically, I didn't necessarily go to the Bible, but rather women who helped influence my Christian walk. And again, there have been so many. So this is where I was like, Lord, please don't let anybody be offended, because I only chose a few. And it was just from like different periods in my life. So when I was young, it'd be Noreen Swenson, and just the example that she was, and just a godly example. I'm not going to get into her story, but she was incredible. And Aressa Watson at PCC, also an incredible woman, and just again watching her life and her dedication to what she would do. And she ended up being my office mate when I first started teaching. And so anyway, all of that. And so that was somebody else. And then Kathy Pelton was another lady that when I was out in Colorado, like I have told her many a times, I don't know how I would have gotten through that time had it not been for her pouring into my life. So
she's going to make me cry.
It's Mother's Day. So,
get your tissues, ladies. It's fun.
All right. Number 2 for me had to be, and I combined 2 of them. So again, not even one category, but here's 2: teachers and pastors. Because pastors are teachers as well. There have been many teachers and pastors that have, again, poured into my life. And I admire the passion and the dedication and their willingness to say it's more than just about me. Mm-hmm. And I want to see you as an individual grow. And so, again, I didn't name anybody there because that one would take too long. But in general,
I put parents. My mom for going back and getting her GED when I was 12. Certainly, yeah.
Way
and
to go.
re-entering the workforce was certainly something that she was always a hard worker. I learned that.
Yeah.
She doesn't sit still very much, even now. if she's listening. And then my dad, learning to play the piano through sheer desire.
Mm.
And he was self-taught. He learned in an old church with gloves on to play in the wintertime because there was no heat. Was an incredible pianist. And
Don't worry, mine's coming. It's number 1 for me.
played for gospel quartets. Was an amazing musician.
Yeah.
Sang specials his whole life. Performed. Played 10 keys at one time.
Yeah.
I swear. Could transpose anything in his head. Could listen to somebody, was ear taught, ear trained. Could have somebody hum a couple of bars and he would have been playing along with you today.
So amazing.
So very, very talented, and didn't have lessons until after I was born.
Yeah.
He was already a church pianist. So incredible story of desire.
Well, and when you meet people like that, is it just, I don't know, there's an element where you feel like is an outpouring of who Jesus is and what Jesus has done in your life, that you cannot but give him praise and use whatever he's given you to, again, cry out. And that idea of like, if I don't, the rocks will.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, number 1 for me are my parents. Darn it.
Sorry.
Woo!
You started it.
Woo! My parents were young when they had me, and I got a completely different life than they did. And I've watched them grow, and I've watched them overcome. And they are the example of wanting Jesus to be in and through who they are. And I'm so thankful that Jesus was throughout our lives, that they weren't one way at church and a different way at home, that they said your faith is what you make of it, not what we believe. You have to make these choices for you. And again, if I could tell their whole story, I would, but just the amount of adversity that they've overcome and the chains that they've broken, I think for me, that is what causes me to say that nothing is impossible. When you read that, nothing with God, nothing is impossible, because I've watched people who have said, I will not be like this because Jesus is more. And so, and I've always admired my parents. I really have. I really have. So, all right, get through your number 1 so then that way we can stop crying.
Okay. And this was so hard. I was like, as I was typing this up, I'm like, is she trying to kill me? What is she doing to me? Yes. Because I don't know why this was so difficult, but there are some friends who are also family and some other friends who I just have so many phenomenal people in my life.
Yeah.
People who are my besties, who know me and love me anyway. They know the good, the bad, the ugly, have been here through tough times.
Yeah.
Sitting on the couch with you.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jennifer and Sabrina if you're listening. There's people that have been in my life that I just admire them as I watch the things that they have gone through with such grace and relying on Christ to see them through. And I can't begin to name everyone because I don't want to leave someone out.
Seriously, we don't.
But so many friends who have encouraged, friends that come along at the right time.
That's right. God
I
is
needed this. That brought people into my life just when I needed it most. And Christ reminding me that just when I need it most, he's there, and he's putting people into my life for a reason. And you don't always understand it. and then something amazing happens, or you reconnect with them after many, many, many years, and it's the same as if you've never been apart.
Yes.
Um,
Totally have friends like that. Absolutely.
I am not one of those people. When you're not in my everyday life, it's hard to keep track of everybody.
Yeah.
Not because I don't want to, just because
It's busy. Yeah.
life is busy.
Yeah.
But when we do reconnect, it's just like we never were apart.
You've got like those inside jokes that you can, yeah, laugh about and bring
Always.
up. Yeah, for sure.
And people that I have traveled hard times with, people that have, I think of my nursing school friends
Yeah.
that we went through some challenging times making it. And so definitely connections there. So many people that I admire in terms of people seeing Christ in them as well. I to me, those are some of the people that I admire the most, is people that face adversity and continue to shine through that adversity.
Yeah. There you go. There is our
Okay, we need our box of tissues now.
There's our hard fought list of people we admire. There are so many of them. With it being Mother's Day, I'm going to throw this out here. She has no idea that I was going to do this.
Oh, great.
With this being our Mother's Day episode, is there anything that you and your family do that's almost like tradition for Mother's Day? Do you do something consistently on Mother's Day?
We do not.
Okay.
Things have always been, so my mom's birthday is right before Mother's Day.
Okay.
And so we always celebrate stuff on her birthday.
Oh.
So that's May 4th.
Yeah.
So we always, so even I'm like, which one do you want, Mom? If I can't come home for this one, since we don't live in the same town.
Right.
And she always picks her birthday as opposed to Mother's Day.
Yeah.
And so that has just always been something, but something that we do regularly is my husband is fantastic at buying flowers for our mothers. So, or buying them a plant. So sometimes we plant flowers at my mom's house. He takes her and gets her flowers and helps her plant them now. We buy his mama flowers to go outside because they would rather have those than the ones that die inside.
Yes. No, it's interesting that you say that because I too do not. It's funny for those of you that don't know, I am currently on my very first journey of trying to grow flowers on my own. Right now, it's going great. I've got these little baby seedlings, but I have no idea what's going to happen when I put them in the ground. So, but anyway, I don't like things that typically die. It's just for me, and I'm like, that's so much money. It can be better spent. So, one of the things that I have that every year I get is a lacquer, I think is the right way to say it, a lacquered rose. So it's a different color. And so I have one every year I've been a mom.
Oh.
And so I have a bouquet of flowers that they don't wilt or die. And so I can put them, I think this year I'm going to have to split it because it's enough that I have in there that I can make two different vases. But that's one of the things that we do. We didn't want it to become one of those things where it was a competition. Right. We didn't want our kids to feel like, oh, well, you got to figure out what mom wants and, try to one up it or something along those lines.
I'm pretty easy.
And yeah. and so I told my husband, I was like, this is what I want every year. It's super simple. This is something. And I always tell them, get it in advance before the prices go up. Get it. They just go ahead and put it in there. And then that way in the Amazon cart. And then that way it can be here beforehand. So that's one of the things that we do. Is there anything that you do? I know a lot of moms go out for Mother's Day. So they go out to eat or something like that. We do sometimes. Sometimes it just, you're kind of like, I don't want to fight everybody.
Exactly.
There.
Exactly.
Like, I'd rather not. And so we'll just pick a different day and we'll go out. But nowadays, again, it's just so hard. We have 4 kids. So it's hard to justify the expense of it all when, again, and because my kids are now to the age where they could just make me a meal, like go work together in the kitchen and make mom something. So that's, I think, a part of it too. It's just like, let's not. So But we'd love to hear. We'd love to hear if there's anything
Yes.
that you guys get to do that's special on Mother's Day that means something to you, and share your the one person. We're not even asking for five, just one person that you admire. Feel free to leave it in the comments. And if you missed it last episode, we are doing a giveaway where we are giving away a free shirt or hat. But you have to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page, and then send us, whether through Facebook message or through email, at info@connectionwithpurpose.com, the phrase "He is risen." It came from our Easter episode. When we have 10 people, then we will go ahead and do the drawing for a winner. But thank you again for joining us. We hope that you enjoy the shorter format. If there's anything else that you'd love to hear, we would love to have your feedback as well. So thank you for joining the conversation. We can't wait to see you next week. Bye.
Bye. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and can't wait to hear more.
If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe, like, and follow us at connectionwithpurpose.com so you never miss an episode. We love having you as a part of our community.
Until next time, stay connected, because the best conversations are the ones that bring us closer together.